hang on a minute, haven't we already done this before? Yes folks, your eyes aren't deceiving you, we are in fact doing classic Sonic again. Yay. Like many content creators, I slowly but surely begin to feel insecure about my own work, to the point where I feel like I need to redo it so you can feel like you've actually improved, only to realise that your entire existence is hinged on the works of other people, and the cycle begins to My early videos are, to put it bluntly, shit. Take my Sonic 1 video for instance. Not only do I sound like I'm dying half the time, but I spend minutes talking about fucking Metroid. Nowadays I feel like I have a much better grasp on what I want these videos to be. Less artsy fartsy pretentiousness, more chill and, cool. Having a nice chat with one of your mates, We're friends, right? I want to take a lot of these pre-2017 videos, i.e. anything from Sonic 1 to Pokemon Sun and Moon, and update them with my current style. This time we'll be covering Sonic 1, 2, 3, CD, 3 and K, and as an added bonus, I'll even throw in a review of Sonic Mania. We're debuting a new format on the show here today. Instead of one review per video, I may occasionally take multiple games and stuff them into one video. I see you freaking out about that timestamp, so here's the deal. I've left bookmarks on both the timeline and in the description. Whether you want to watch this as one big review or several smaller ones, it's really up to you. So if you only want to hear my opinions on a particular game, or you just want to skip to the bonus Mania review, well, here you go. Without further ado, let's get started. It's 1991. A young Yuji Naka is alone playing World 1-1 of Super Mario Bros. In his basement, and as he struggles to get past this first level, he thinks, what if? Fast. If Nintendo was Disney, then Sega was Warner Bros. More striking, adult, and with some bite to boot. For a time, Sonic the Hedgehog was at the forefront of this campaign. Before Sonic, video game characters merely were. They were puppets to be dragged around. They existed for the player and only the player. Sonic was different. He was loud, impatient, waste his time and, well, see what that gets you. Okay, so stop me if you've heard this one before. Sonic won good. Sometimes. If there was ever a dictionary definition of okay first start, then this is it. It honestly baffles me how Sonic Adventure gets chewed out for its consistency, and yet this game gets off fairly lightly, all things considered. To clarify, Sonic 1 is not a bad game, however it is clearly a figment of an idea that's yet to be fully realised. Game's pretty simple. One button jumps, another button jumps, and the other button makes you run. Just kidding, it makes you jump again. You want speed? Well, you gotta earn it, bucko. Sonic builds up speed gradually by simply walking in a given direction. Pressing down mid-run curls Sonic into a ball, which doubles as a form of offense as well as a means to gain speed. Level design comes in all shapes and sizes. Secrets are often tucked in esoteric locations, rewarding both the curious and the players who have mastered the game's physics. Love it or hate it, Green Hill Zone is used time and time again for a reason. It's a damn good level, with plenty of opportunities to let loose and go fast, but challenging enough to keep your hands firmly on the wheel. Now, if only all the levels were like this. Whiplash is the word of the day, my friends. Sonic 1's pacing bad. Please clap. Marble Zone is a fine level in any other platformer, but it's just not Sonic. It's flat, with zero opportunities to use those mechanics you were just starting to experiment with. I don't know about you, but I am on the edge of my seat right now. Labyrinth has similar issues. Sure, late game water level, it's meant to be challenging, but nothing about this is remotely designed around the game's strengths. The level design is constantly playing tug of war with itself, and it's a shame because levels like Springyard are great fun. It's still more blocky than I would have liked, however for the most part the platforming and the speed work hand in hand, with the higher routes often being faster provided that you're skilled enough to actually stay on them. Starlight Zone is a good time, but as the penultimate final level, it's a little underwhelming. Compared to Labyrinth Zone, this is about as easy as taking a piss. It's sad, after trudging through the last few zones, you finally let off the leash, and before you even have time to enjoy it, it's over. Not helping the poor level balancing is the fact that all of them have 3 acts. Most of them have already shown their hand by the end of the second act, whittling away at the little patience I didn't have. But what if you don't like having fun? Well, might I recommend the Chaos Emeralds? Sure, I love wasting time, I've been doing it for the past 22 years. The ring system in Sonic the Hedgehog games has always been a little bit of a necessary compromise. Given how fast you're going, stuff's not always going to work as intended, and although it's not exempt from criticism, it's not always possible to create robust enemy placement. Your view can be pitiful in relation to how fast you're going. It leads to a situation where having more than one ring is ultimately pointless unless you really want those extra lives. Getting to the end of the stage with 50 rings or more causes a giant ring to pop up and give you an opportunity to grab a Chaos Emerald. Already there's an issue. As I said, just try and play these games normally and not get hit, it's pretty much impossible. Getting the Chaos Emeralds requires that you play the game in a way that it was not intended to be played. Not only making once fun zones no longer fun, but the boring ones stick out even more than they already do. Lord help you if you get so far into a level only to get hit right before you cross the finish line. That's just getting the chance to enter the special stage. The special stages themselves, oh, they're god awful. When they're not confusing to navigate, they're kicking you out through no fault of your own. Which wouldn't be so bad, but every opportunity counts. Special stages don't spawn in Act 3 nor Scrap Brain, meaning that you've got a total of 10 chances to grab 6 Chaos Emeralds. 4 strikes and you're out. What do these privileged few get for undertaking such a monumental task? A slightly different ending. Flowers appear. That's it. That's it. You could say, well, if it's optional, why complain? And that is a good point, but if it contributes nothing to the game, what's the point of having it there to begin with? Speaking of, how about those bosses? Are they even allowed to be called that? Nearly all of them are some variation of back and forth, drop down, get within hitting range, repeat for the next 6 zones. The only one that's even remotely challenging is the one in Labyrinth Zone, and in that one, Robotnik isn't even fighting you, the level design puts up more of a fight than him. It's like an allegory for the entire game. If you die here, the difficulty spike is immense. Not only do you have to beat the thing with a single shield and no rings, but you also have to deal with platforming, while contending with water physics and also trying not to drown. This one section in and of itself is harder than the final boss, which should tell you all you need to know about Sonic 1 as a game. If I can say anything that's great across the board about this game, it's the presentation. That's held true for the series since. I love how you start in the lush and pure green hill zone with each subsequent level slowly integrating man-made elements, only to become full on industrial by the end, nailing the nature versus machine theme it was going for. Dreams Come True, although I don't find their work as good as later series composers, still played a big part in propelling this character into iconic status. Ultimately, I'm not going to bother weighing up whether or not I recommend this game because chances are you've probably already played it, and if you haven't, you've probably got a copy lying around somewhere even if you never asked for it. Go on, check in the fridge next time, you've probably got a copy of Sonic 1 in there. Not a bad game per se, but it definitely has a lot going against it, and as time goes on, the cracks only become more noticeable. If nothing else, Sonic 1 was a vision for what the series could be, and really it only goes up from here, so I think it's fair to say that the base left behind was still fairly solid. Hell yeah, boys. Okay, I'm going to be real with you. Sonic 2 is not a perfect sequel by any means, but damn, it's so fun. Away with 3 acts, squeeze them all into 2 and make the levels bigger. You want speed? Oh, I'll give you speed and I'll crank up the saturation while I'm at it. Sonic 2 is basically the first game on crack. There are so many more opportunities to just let it rip and watch the carnage unfold. Better yet, the game keeps up this pace past the first level, so we're already off to a good start. This game actually feels like it's tailor-made for Sonic this time as opposed to just any other mascot with a face. The spin dash is a fantastic new mechanic allowing you to pick up the pace with the tap of a button. Just rev away and keep the good times rolling. Secrets and shortcuts are once again in abundance, with the vast majority only given to players with a keen eye and willingness to explore. My favourite example of this is in Aquatic Ruin. What better way is there to sharpen a player's skills than by threatening them with the prospect that they might actually have to play a water level? Stay high and dry and you don't have to worry about any of that. The challenge is tweaked to fit the game's strengths. A neat addition that gets glossed over by so many that I really appreciate is the continue system. Before, continues could only be earned by getting a certain number of rings in a special stage, whereas here they're given out by getting over 10,000 points in a given level. Not only does this reward particularly skillful players and make those not good at the game want to improve, but it also gives points as a whole a much greater reason to be, a philosophy later adopted by the 3D titles. Not only do I find the levels more fun to play in Sonic 2, they're frankly more fun to look at too. What can I say, game's colourful. The buzzing nightlife or the subdued melancholy of a factory at dusk, it all resonates with me a lot more than the first game ever could. Level gimmicks are more pronounced here than they were before, and none of them feel out of place, like Marbles block riding for example. You can even enjoy it with a friend if you want to. Tails makes his debut here, only he can't fly in single player, which eliminates the point of adding him entirely. I guess this is the debut of Sega's patented good ideas. If I had to criticise anything about this game, it's that ironically, it's too fast for its own good sometimes. The first 2/3 of the game go by so quickly that by the time you get to Oil Ocean and the game actually expects you to do some platforming, you say to yourself, oh. While not a bad level when taken on its own, the game does very little to prepare you for the jump in difficulty, and it only gets worse from there. Sky Chase is a slow auto-scroller. Why is there an auto-scroller in my fast mammal game? I know I gave the devs a lot of slack in the first game for the limited visibility and enemy placement, but there are limits. A lot of the design here just feels intentionally dickish, like somebody looked at this and thought, you know what would be funny? And then just proceeded to make Metropolis Zone. This game is constantly encouraging you to go fast, while also actively punishing you for doing so. Chaos Emeralds return, retaining a lot of the same design problems of the first game. You still need to get 50 rings. Good luck with what we've just discussed. Though it is made a little easier by virtue of having the checkpoints be the entrance this time. Once again, the actual special stages themselves are pretty much trial and error, a bit better in this instance though since you have triple the chances to get the emeralds. My biggest problem with these is how choppily they're animated. You never know when the stage is going to turn nor what's hiding around the bend. The iOS version fixes this, but unfortunately Sega hates fun, so us console peasants have to make do. Get all of them and you too can become Super Saiyajin. Is it worth it? No, not really. I mean, even if we ignore the fact that you're highly unlikely to get 50 rings towards the end of your playthrough, you lose all your progress when you turn off the game. So no, I didn't go after Super Sonic, and frankly, I have no regrets. I had fun. Can these even be considered bosses? Like, I thought the encounters with Robotnik in the first game were sad, but these just put up no resistance whatsoever. Most fights work the same way. He appears, he gets into position to attack, and oh no, wait, no, he's already dead. Final boss ain't too shabby, a bit of a jump in difficulty with no rings and limited continues, but as long as you respect the pattern and don't get too greedy, you should be fine. I think the frustration for this part of the game comes from just how easy the game is up until that point. You are constantly safety cushioned, never having to pay much attention to what it is you're doing. You take a beating from the last few zones, only to be sucker punched by the game demanding perfection when you've been taught to expect anything but. It can be brutal, perhaps even downright unfair at points. Despite all that though, this is one of those cases where I think the highs are just so high that it makes it pretty hard to care. Again, not perfect, but you've probably already played it before, so why am I telling you this? If you haven't, it's on everything. Please do. Sonic 2 is a delight. Sonic CD is a pretty weird game. Originally slated to be Sonic 2 until development moved from Sega of Japan to Sega Technical Institute over in America, Sonic CD has fans split right down the middle, and it's not hard to see why. One thing I think we can all agree on though is that this intro slaps. Sega commissioned Toei Animation of Dragon Ball and One Piece fame to produce this work of art. It's amazing what the people at Toei can do when they actually give themselves the time and the budget. That is, if you're playing it on anything but the Sega CD, in which case it looks like this. We're strictly going with the re-release this time around because let's face it, what other version is anyone playing nowadays? We've got a larger focus on story this time, with Robotnik using the time stones to chain up a little planet and take it over in the past before Sonic has a chance to stop him. Not to mention the introduction of mainstay characters Amy and Metal Sonic, with the former getting kidnapped, appearing for a collective total of 20 seconds, and the latter slamming his face into a door like a hyperactive child. So yeah, overall really good first impressions. Yes indeed, time travel is the main gimmick here, and it's what's going to make or break the game for you. Your main objective in each of these stages is to go to the past and destroy a hidden robot generator. Once completed, you create a good future for that particular level. To get the good ending, you are required to destroy all the robot generators. You cannot miss a single one. Now, to the game's credit, although you don't get anything substantial, it isn't shy about showing you the consequences of what happens if you don't. If you choose to travel to the future before tackling the robot generators, you will receive a very hostile reception. Not only is the level design arguably more tricky, but the pleasant and bubbly tones from before give way to a very nihilistic atmosphere. Palm Tree Panic's all decayed, the ruins in Tidal Tempest have been graffitied over, the lights in Stardust Speedway have been artificially jacked up, causing the skies to darken and electromagnetic storms to settle in. It's the principle of the thing that's the driving force this time, and I think that's really cool. Counting the two futures, you essentially have 4 different variations on each level. That's nuts. How are these levels? Well, that's a complicated thing to answer. It really depends on what you want out of a Sonic game. You see, travelling through time isn't as simple as just passing a signpost and you're off. No, you gotta do it Back to the Future style. Problem is, since a lot of these levels are constructed with the premise of finding the robot generator, there really are no consistent ways of gaining speed. As a sort of workaround, you'll notice that every level has at least one section with 2 adjacent springs. These are here solely to get you to the past. This is stupid. If you're going to make going to the past a speed-based challenge and then create level design that makes said challenge null and void, why program it like this to begin with? Time travel hiccups aside, I think people who enjoy the explorative side of Sonic games will really get a kick out of CD. It's when going for the other method of getting good futures that the overall structure starts to flake a bit. Getting into the special stages is identical to how it worked in Sonic 1, only I'd argue it's done better. Robot generators, along with creating good futures, destroy every enemy in a level, making it easier to get the time stones. These 2 methods can be done separately. Even if you get a bad future in one level, you're still guaranteed to get a good ending provided you get all the time stones. The fact that both methods feed into each other makes any particular playstyle feel more valued. You go for the generators to get an easier route to the time stones, and you get the time stones to avoid having to find the generators. These are some good special stages, provided that you're playing the 2011 remake. You go around destroying all the UFOs before time runs out. Touching the water causes your remaining time to plummet. What I love about these is that by decoding any obvious patterns and optimising your route, you could potentially clear this in seconds if you're skilled enough. These special stages just feel more in line with what Sonic is actually about, a challenge of speed and platforming. But see, when you're not going for the generators, that's when the true flaw of these levels start to show. Most of the levels in CD can be cleared in less than a minute, 2 tops. These levels are all built vertically, not horizontally. When you get all the time stones, you'll find that later levels don't really leave much of an impression because they're over before they have a chance to get going. The Sonic Forces problem, if you will. I don't think it quite reaches the same high as 2 does, but it also doesn't have any jarring pacing or difficulty shifts. In fact, I would probably say that they do a much better job at combining speed and platforming than either Sonic 1 or Sonic 2. CD isn't that hard, there's barely any bottomless pits to speak of to accommodate for exploration. When the level design does get frustrating, it's usually built to annoy you rather than just flat out punish you. Honestly, I dig it. Except Wacky Workbench, that's still a fucking dog shit level. I think what I appreciate most about CD is its boss design, because they actually feel like bosses. Most of them go down in 1 or 2 hits. It's about how you hit them that's the challenge. The best example is in Quartz Quadrant. You've got to shred away at Robotnik's contraption by maintaining your speed, whilst also dodging the mines he throws at you. The Metal Sonic race is another key example. These are the kinds of bosses that only a game like Sonic can do. They aren't all winners, the final boss in particular feels like something out of the first and second game with how easy it is, but for the most part they definitely play to Sonic's strengths. I think I was a bit harsh on CD my first go around. I mean, I don't adore it, I would play Sonic 2 any day over this, but it ain't that bad either. It fulfills a special niche, and if my Lost World and Riders review has taught me anything, that's valuable. Sure, its constantly fluctuating gameplay styles could be seen as inherently flawed to some, but I've come to realise that that's what so many people love about this franchise. We can all find something to enjoy even if we're not all appreciating the same thing. And I think that's something that should be celebrated in its own special way. You're alright by me, CD. I know you're all waiting for me to come off with some sizzling hot take, but I just can't this time. That's for next game. I'm just gonna say it, this is the greatest 2D platformer ever made. There's a reason why fans won't shut up about this one, comparing it to every subsequent game. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a masterclass both in design and a banquet for those hungry for content. 14 zones, 3 playable characters, dozens of secrets. This game is the complete package. Look, we can debate all day about whether this game counts as 1 or 2, and I hear you, it is pretty scummy how despite constantly acknowledging it as one game, Sega continues to sell it as 2. Well, whenever they do decide to sell it. That being said, can we just take the time to acknowledge that all this was done in 1994, a time before DLC? Lock-on technology really is incredible when you think about it. You see, the team at Sega originally intended for Sonic 3 to release February 1994. Deadlines grew closer, production costs inflated, something had to give, so the team at Sega just decided to release what they had. Normally, that's where the story would end. Game releases, people are happy, if a bit disappointed, and then years later internet personalities dig it apart to mourn the loss of the content we never got. Not Sonic Team though, no, instead the absolute mad lads decided to get back to work and release a second cartridge called Sonic & Knuckles, one that connected to Sonic 3 to create their original vision, but with even more stuff that was never planned. Not just that, if you were to put Sonic 2 on top, then you could play as the new character Knuckles in that game as an added bonus. I don't know how the fuck they did it, but they did it. Sonic 3 begins directly after Sonic 2 with the Death Egg, that's the Death Star with a mustache on it, stranded on Angel Island. Robotnik tricks the local guardian Knuckles into believing that Sonic is his enemy, despite the thing literally having his fucking face on it. All the while going to make repairs in secret. Blow it up before he does. The end. Even more so than in CD, story is given way more of a presence here. Each level feeds into the next, making the adventure feel grander in scope, as well as the world more tangible. Knuckles, likewise, is a great antagonist, always understandably being one step ahead of you. It is his island after all. Never too far away, but always out of reach. Except for when he isn't. Fun first time because he could literally show up anywhere, at the start, middle or the end, you never know. You'll be going about your business and then, oh shh. What makes Sonic 3 the legendary game that it is its stages, but more importantly, how you interact with them. Not only is the size of these levels triple from what you've seen from Sonic 1 or 2, but now for the first time you have character specific abilities. Pay attention to my wording there. Yes, Sonic 2 had multiple characters, but neither had a distinct advantage over the other. The level design never had to accommodate for the use of a different character, which is why they're so big here. Sonic can seem a bit basic compared to his companions, but he does have a few characteristics to help him stand out. The Insta-Shield is an ability that extends the range for his spin attack, occasionally letting you score a cheeky hit or avoid taking damage from a spiked enemy or something. As well as that, he can also activate secondary abilities of the new elemental shields, which normally just provide environmental advantages. The perks to playing as Sonic isn't as cool as the power to literally go anywhere, but what he does offer is enough for me to prefer his playstyle over any other. Tails can fly now, pretty self-explanatory, lots of fun, definitely the best character to scout levels with. Finally, Knuckles is a bit different. He can glide and climb walls as well as punch through previously unexplorable areas, but as a trade-off, he isn't as fast and he can't jump very high. Sonic and Tails follow the same beats, but Knuckles has an entire playthrough of his own. There's new pathways specifically created for him which not only change the way you play, but act as an epilogue to Sonic's story. Several times in Knuckles' story you'll see very small, easily missable callbacks that do cement the fact that this does in fact take place after Sonic has already left the island. Angel Island isn't waterlogged anymore, and you'd know that by looking at Carnival Night. I really appreciate this, it shows that they actually put consideration into this character. They wanted him to be a big deal. As for the levels themselves, I really don't have any standout complaints. With the exception of Sandopolis, all of these zones are a joy to go through. Between acts, levels undergo an aesthetic change, and the music is even arranged slightly differently. Everything about this game is just so incredibly fresh. It's still an incredibly fast game with little pockets of platforming to even things out. This game also introduces scripted cinematic set pieces. Largely divorced from gameplay, these are just an excuse to show off something cool. Something that future games would take and run with, and something that's still hotly contested within the fanbase today. One of Sonic 3's greatest design decisions is how it handles its special stages. There's no longer a ring requirement now, instead that's reserved for the new bonus stages. Get 25 rings, hit a checkpoint, and boom, you're in. These are here to offer you lives and power-ups, still incentivising good play without being overly punishing. The special stages on the other hand are entered by jumping into a giant ring found in the level. It's a new kind of challenge, one that pairs really well with the expansive level design. This changes a couple of things. For one, it makes exploring the levels themselves more fun since you never know when one of these will pop up. Repeat playthroughs can be so enlightening even 20 years down the line because there's just so many places that you never thought to look. It's the game that keeps on giving. Furthermore, it also changes how you view failure in the event that you happen to fail a special stage. It isn't like 1 or CD with its rigid so many misses and you're out kind of deal, nor is it like Sonic 2 where the challenge actively fights with how the game's designed. So long as you're keeping an eye out, there will always be another chance to grab those emeralds. Even disregarding a lot of the more esoteric ones, you're always handed out the occasional freebie. In this game, getting the emeralds are actually worth it this time. And even then, if you still can't get all the emeralds and access the secret final boss, after beating the game thanks to the save system, you can basically just grind in Angel Island. You have every incentive to go after them this time. Blue Sphere was at one point my favourite special stage in the series, and I think a large part of that is because of how it does away with a lot of the RNG trial and error BS from the first couple of games. Get blue spheres and avoid the red ones, with the stage speeding up as you go. It's simple with very little getting in the way of your success. Unlike before, fucking up feels like it's my fault and the weight of failure never feels as stressful as before. Even with the Super Emeralds, a second set you can get to get the one game only hyper forms, none of these stages are all that difficult with some practice and careful observation. Circling a group of blue orbs allows you to turn them into rings. Perfecting a stage requires that you get all the rings, which means nothing except points and extra lives, but it's a fun challenge regardless. I would comment on the bosses, but it's pretty hard to say much when they all tremble to the might of my awesome power. For real though, they are much improved this time around. Some of them still fall foul to the classic jump 8 times consecutively combo, but most of them have more bite than that. In Hydro City's boss, for example, the expected thing to do is to wait for him to go down and start summoning whirlpools. However, if you time your jumps to the exploding grenades, you can score some extra hits. Not all winners, again, but certainly memorable. Sonic 3, unlike the games we've talked about thus far, hasn't been re-released nearly as many times. It's still on a crap ton of old compilations, so it's not exactly hard to come by, but if you're looking for something current gen, you might have difficulties there. The reason for this is because Michael Jackson did have some involvement with the soundtrack. We don't know how much, but enough to stop this game from being re-released. Incidentally, one of the last ports of the game was shortly after his death, so it's safe to assume that it's legal issues keeping this one back, unfortunately. If you want to play the game, there is a backwards compatible version on Xbox consoles, although I don't recommend it personally because it takes out the save feature. Your best bet is to go through Steam. A potato could run it, it's cheap, and you have access to fan mods, and there are some pretty decent fan mods. If for whatever reason you haven't played this yet and you like platformers, please do so, it's fantastic. Oh boy, here we go. Okay, so before we get into this, I would like to say that I do like Sonic Mania. I think it's an excellent game, and I think you should play it. That being said, it's far from the best Sonic game ever released, let alone a masterpiece. Now, with all that out of the way, Sonic the Hedgehog has had it rough ever since his jump to 3. Love this intro, Tyson Hesse is king, loved his work with the comics and on the movie. I love how bouncy and expressive everything is, and I especially love how the backgrounds pay homage to the original Japanese colours, with its nonsensical patterns and flat colours. Sonic Mania comes to us not from Sonic Team but from members of the Sonic fan community, Christian Whitehead and Simon Tonley, and those at Headcanon. Originally getting their start with a fan game featuring near one-to-one physics of the Genesis games, these devs would eventually make a name for themselves using their retro engine to remaster Sonic 1, 2 and CD. Sonic 3 was initially on the cards, but presumably for legal reasons, the team was instead given the task of creating a new game from scratch. Said game debuted alongside Sonic Forces at the 25th anniversary livestream event. It was released to universal critical acclaim, receiving an add-on a year later introducing a few long-forgotten characters, as well as some other fluff. Let's get that out of the way first. If you've played any of the classic games before this, then you should feel right at home. Running, jumping, rolling down slopes, it all works arguably better than it ever did. The game is now presented in widescreen, better accommodating high speeds, and just all around, less cheap to play. This might not be from the same people from back in the day, but make no mistake, they know their stuff. Dr. Eggman is depressed and has built a new workforce called the Hardboiled Heavies to get rid of Sonic and retrieve the Phantom Ruby, a jewel capable of bending reality. Exposure to the rock causes the robots to rebel, so now it's a three-way race to stop either party from doing some freaky shit. Translation: we wanted to use old stages but we already used time travel, so this is just the next convenient excuse. Sonic himself has been given an exclusive new move. The drop dash allows you to keep your momentum going, arguably better than the spin dash. Just hold the jump button down before you make contact with the ground and that's it, you're off. I love this move because not unlike the other moves that Sonic has, its benefit to the player isn't immediately obvious, especially with how much of a leg up Tails and Knuckles have in comparison. The players who put the time in, learn the terrain and have a tight grasp of the controls, they're the people who are going to get the best use out of it. It's yet another way to intrinsically motivate you to maintain your speed, something that the series has stressed since its inception. The move itself being so well received that it's been retroactively added to older titles. Speaking of older titles, if you've ever had a particular preference for Sonic's playstyle, maybe you like the Insta-Shield, or maybe you're that one guy who likes the peel out, good news! They're unlockable. However, that does raise a problem I've had with the game since release. Why not just combine all these abilities into one package? As it stands, Sonic's powers pale in comparison to Tails and Knuckles, at least conceptually. You have multiple buttons to work with, use them. The elemental shields also return, now having secondary effects based on the terrain of the level. I love this idea because it decentivizes reckless play that comes from having an extra hit. I can only count about 3 times this actually happens, and that's a shame because it's a cool idea and one I want to see for future 2D Sonic games. Adding on to that, maybe we could get some new elemental shields, like maybe an ice shield that freezes water? I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. The game has 12 zones, 8 old and 4 original. While smaller in total than 3, they make up for that by dwarfing the size of that game, and that is saying something. The key difference between this game and the other ones is the sheer amount of times you can just push down and watch Sonic go. There were sections like that in the original, sure, but they were never to the same extent. Long, sharp downward curves, loop-de-loops and ramps as far as the eye can see. Getting to kick back and watch the game work its magic, it's a joy to witness, and a celebration of what makes these games truly great. That being said, it does feel like you're on autopilot sometimes. A thing I appreciate about Mania that Sonic 4 also did coincidentally enough is the attention given to make sure that each act, not just every zone, stands out. This is particularly true with the older levels. One act will have you do something familiar, or the other will be something completely new. It's great for not only keeping the game interesting to play, but squeezes out creative potential that may never have been truly realised. With the exception of Oil Ocean, mind you, I hate this level, I never liked it in Sonic 2, and I especially don't like it now it's been fused with one of my least favourite levels from Sonic 3. Credit where credit is due though, I do like the fact that we have more obscure picks, even if I am sick of Green Hill and Chemical Plant. The new zones here are the star of the show. Press Garden Act 2 is probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a video game, coupled with the equally brilliant tracks by T. Lopes. Titanic Monarch has this really thick, foreboding atmosphere to it. Sounds of church bells echoing, the entire room illuminated by stained glass windows. Shit's creepy, and one of the best finales we've had in a long time. In particular, I love how they repurposed those spinny orb things from Sonic 3's bonus stages and made them part of the level. Knuckles even has his own exclusive level in the form of Mirage Saloon Act 1. See, I like this because 2D Sonic levels thus far have always had to accommodate for multiple playstyles. Designing character specific levels would not only mean more unique challenges, but it would also massively add to replay value, as each playthrough would have something new to offer. Special stages and bonus stages are entered the same way they were in Sonic 3. For bonus stages, we have the returning blue spheres with even more trickier layouts. Loved these in Sonic 3, happy to see them back. My only complaint is that they last a bit too long to be bonus stages. That being said, they're optional and they do unlock some really cool rewards, like extra styles for Sonic, debug mode, and other things fans will likely get a kick out of. Special stages this time have you collecting blue orbs to increase your speed, while also collecting rings to make sure your timer doesn't run out. I love these simply for the fact that they aren't much of a departure from the main game. Much like the main levels, once you get good you can blaze through these on repeats. Special stages were always a formality in these games, but with this one I actively look forward to playing them. That being said, I do have some issues with how these special rings were handled. Sonic 3 always made sure to give you ample opportunities to get the Chaos Emeralds, so long as you were even remotely paying attention. I distinctly remember on my first Mania playthrough I only got one Chaos Emerald across 3 special rings I found throughout the entire game. It's not like I didn't search for them either, I just never came across any. On the one hand, finding these things feels genuinely rewarding, but at the same time the special stages themselves are so different to any other that you're going to need time to adjust. Most of my appreciation for these stages came after I beat the main game, where I could practice in Green Hill Zone at my leisure. Now, yeah, sure, I can beat these things no problem on an average playthrough, but before they felt overly punishing and hard to get a grip on. I mean, even now, I still can't tell you where any of the rings are in Stardust Speedway. Furthermore, there'll be times where I'll be going down a slope or some other fast set piece where the game actively encourages me to go fast, only to tease me with a special ring that I can no longer get because I was doing what the game was telling me to do. Dimps games get ragged on for this kind of level design all the time, and while it's nowhere near as punishing as those games, if it's not okay there, it's not okay here. For the most part, the devs managed to keep the fanboy bullshit out of the way and focus on quality. There are many Easter eggs, both nods to classic Sonic and Sega games alike. The majority of these don't affect gameplay, and the ones that do are harmless. However, occasionally some of that fan-wanky nonsense does pop up. Guys, I get it, I like Puyo Puyo 2, it's the best puzzle game, don't at me. But what does this have to do with my fast mammal game? First playthrough, I'll admit I clapped just like everybody else. Yay, Mean Bean Machine, how unexpected and hilarious. When I do it now though, it's like, oh, I guess we're doing this now. Fair play though, you can unlock a minigame that's more fleshed out. Also buy Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. Guys, seriously, I would have thought you'd known that nobody likes Sky Chase, and by that I mean I didn't like Sky Chase. Makes it even worse if you're playing as Sonic or Tails, because it takes one of the 4 original zones and basically cuts them in half. Hydra City's mini-boss is the same deal. Novel at first, tedious and boring on replay. At the very least, I can see this one actually being a good idea. The foundation is there, I just think they should have chosen a more interesting contraption. One that isn't so limited in mobility and offense. Bosses are fantastic, with many of them mixing the approach from CD and 1, 2 and 3. Take this spider boss for instance. You damage it by knocking it into spikes with the bumper on its back. You can still beat the boss relatively quickly with practice. It's CD because of how you hit the boss, while always allowing you to do damage like 1 through 3. The Metal Sonic boss's final phase was a little underwhelming at first, so they changed it, but in this case I think they overdid it. It's rather easy to get knocked back into a pit, and it's a rather large difficulty spike relative to your place in the game. In 2017, the game got paid DLC with the Plus expansion. For one, it reintroduced Mighty and Ray, 2 characters that made their debut in an arcade-only game called Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, and have since been only seen in comic form. Mighty can perform a downward slam and is impervious to spikes. Ray on the other hand is pretty much the Cape Feather from Mario World. They come bundled with the brand new Encore mode, which is, quite frankly, shit. Instead of lives, you have characters that you collect through special monitors. You can also get them by playing the brand new Pinball bonus stage. Where they shoot themselves in the foot is the fact that you can't freely switch between each of the characters like you would in, say, Heroes. You can switch between your current partner but never anybody on the bench, which is a shame. These levels are so big, giving me the freedom to explore them however I want is a cool idea. It would also make death seem a little more meaningful, since the more you die, the less freedom you have to explore. If you're expecting radically different levels, then you're gonna be disappointed because it's not all that different, and it's certainly not any tougher. Put it this way, I've seen modders on Steam do better. Plus is worth it for the extra characters, but Encore is a complete waste of time. Ultimately, I feel like what holds this game back is lack of original ideas, and I know this sounds hypocritical coming from the guy whose literal favourite game is Sonic Generations, a game that arguably panders more than this game ever could, but just let me explain. When you play a stage in Generations, you're playing it in an entirely new way, even if it looks and feels exactly like that old stage. Whereas in Mania, yeah, it looks nicer and there are a few unique gimmicks, but you're largely playing them in the same way you always have done. Generations to me was very much the first of its kind, and to that end it felt like a very genuine attempt to celebrate Sonic as a franchise. Put it this way, Generations had Crisis City from Sonic 06 as one of its levels. That's the equivalent of somebody shitting themselves in class, proudly standing up and saying, yeah, I did that. Whereas Sonic Mania feels like an attempt to celebrate classic Sonic. It's absolutely fine to create a game for those fans, and Mania pulls it off spectacularly most of the time. However, in trying to be so like those old games, I don't really feel like it carves out much of an identity for itself. Mania is great, but I can't in my right mind call it better than 3 and Knuckles, because what this game got right is something that game had cracked years ago. Only now with very little to call its own. As I've said earlier, the Sonic fanbase is built up of several different niches and points of origin. Yet the classic fans seem to be the only one that they care about. Look, just go back to 2017, look at how many Mania reviews start with Sonic has had it rough ever since he's jumped to 3D and blah blah blah. At this point I'm pretty much convinced that Sega have lost faith in modern Sonic, and that's really sad. They were so confident in Mania that Forces got treated as sloppy seconds. I don't hate Forces as much as most people do, but I'm just calling it how I see it. None of this is the Mania team's fault for the record, nor is it the fault of the PR team, because they're just doing what they're told. Like with Pokemon Sword and Shield, this is a corporate issue I have. I know that it's not fair, and I have nothing but respect for the Mania team, but I am so sick and tired of Sega's attitude as of late. Let me just say again, you should buy this game. It's great, solid fun, and you get that where you can with Sonic, but I can't call it the best in the series like so many others have. Not even close. If a new game with most of the original concepts is in the pipeline, I have no doubt that it could very well surpass 3 and Knuckles. This team shows great potential, Sega, don't let them go.